This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day. Carefully crafted for you by humans, so meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fully Managed Podcast. Yonathan, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Of course, a pleasure. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. So today we're going to start with a game. I really like this game because I think that it gets me insight into your mind before we start getting into some more pressing questions. So this game is called Old or Gold. So what I'm going to go through is some very popular companies and their logos might be a little bit out of date. Maybe they've had them for a really long time, or maybe they just haven't altered them very much. And I want to know your opinion as someone who does design of whether you think that they're perfect the way they are or whether you change them and how that would be. Does that sound good?
Okay. Yeah, sounds great.
Beautiful. Obviously, you can't give me a visual representation, but you can describe it the best way that you can, and that is perfectly fine. So are you ready?
I am. Let's do it.
Perfect. Okay. The first one is JCPenney.
Old.
Old. What would you change about it? I agree. It's too simple almost.
Well, I have to say, because I've been working with these established brands, they are always interested in equity of the brand. So even though that the logo might be old, people recognize it from afar. So I wouldn't go and change any of those brands that are recognizable just because you don't want to reinvent it and then just lose the equity that they have been building for years. So maybe simplify it a bit and make it more modern. But I think the 80 or 90% I think should stay the same. And that's what you've seen with for example, the Super G for Google now that they did the gradients or the tiny changes Micro Ultra just skewed the letters a bit, but it's still very recognizable. You don't want to lose equity, but old for sure.
No. I definitely understand that. I also see the very, I think it's almost comical, the approach of changing the color very slightly over time so that it's kind of something that you don't notice until it becomes this completely different color that you didn't realize. I think recently I noticed that Walmart did that, which they're changing their blue to be lighter over years. Right. Which I thought was kind of hysterical because, yeah, it is something that you don't notice. I guess that's a good strategy to change your brand without people actually noticing.
Right. And also what's crazy is you then realize how much these companies are investing in the branding. So they hire this company and they pay I don't know, hundreds, millions of dollars to come up with a strategy of what the logo should change. And it's just a bit lighter. That's the big I was we got it. And they present to the executives is just a shade touch lighter, and then they go with it, but it makes sense. When you talk to them, you realize that they really don't want to lose any equity on their brand and their logo. So I get it, but I don't know what would be the right
risk,
Yeah, I guess so.
I do understand. It's just very funny to know that probably multiple meetings had to have happened and a lot of money had to be put in to just change a logo's color.
I think I read something about the Instagram logo. I don't even remember. There was a little camera, was a beige camera, and then ended up being the exact same camera but in gradient. And there was a lot of strategy behind it, and people remember that the little camera had 3 little I don't know, pieces of gradient, and they wanted to get that and transform it into the whole logo. And that's the biggest change that I've seen, and it's exactly the same shape of the camera. But it's interesting.
They still wanted to keep it. I think that there is big, I don't know if big changes that a logo or a brand can make to their logo that can still make it recognizable. And I like those because I think that it's something that makes the company seem more fresh and modern, but it's something that doesn't change people's opinion on like the brand, if that makes sense. Like, for example, I found out recently that Gap changed their logo, but people were in an uproar about it. Now, I'm pretty sure that it wasn't even diametrically different. Like, it was very similar to the original, but changed, and they had apparently changed it back because of people being so mad. And I don't know if it was a marketing move. That would have been genius, honestly, if like people to become more relevant. But I thought that was something that was very interesting.
or the Jaguar, the whole thing about the Jaguar one, like that. I don't want to go into it, but it was like it feels like some of the brands that take the most risk or do the bigger changes are the ones that are like struggling, right? Like if brands that are doing great, like they don't even have meetings of like what do we need to do. So when you see like a big change, it's probably because the brand is not doing that great. I don't know if that was the case with Gap, or well, I guess yeah, a lot of the big retailers are not. They're not doing great right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case. I mean, malls are closing, so I think that they're probably
online shopping is everything now.
Exactly. So they have to find some kind of relevancy. I guess the big brand change is something that they could do. Well, moving on, because I haven't asked you about too many. So
right, I know.
No, we're still having a great conversation about brands, so it's fine. Zillow is the next one.
I think that's better. Like I think like as a creative or a designer, you can always find an improvement. Like that's how we're trained. Like you will never say like this is perfect. Like, but I would say it's more like in the gold side than the old one.
Yeah, I think it has something fun about it. It has the little like the house, I guess. It something that identifiable about the brand in the logo, which I like. I think there's a lot of logos that are just the name, and I think that works for many brands that are so notable that you don't have to know anything. They don't have to picture anything incorporated in order to know what they are.
Right.
So
That's
the
like
next one would be
okay. Go. Sorry. No. Like the question that I've always had is like, does the logo make the brand, or the brand like what comes first? Like the brand gets so big or so like you so recognizable, and then the logo becomes that, or is it like because of the logo that the brand was able to get there? So like you might see a horrible logo, but then the brand is doing great and they're selling and they're everywhere. Now the logo becomes like, oh, that's an amazing logo. So you never know who went first, or if a logo means that like people are going to like it, or I don't know. It's like an interesting dynamic, I would say.
Yeah, it's like the chicken or the egg.
Exactly.
The logo or the brand. No, I definitely agree. It's very I would like to have more case studies done on it, because I think it would be really interesting. I'd love to just read something about how much a logo can actually go into the popularity of a brand outside of like their service, of course. The next one and the last one, because we are having such a fun time with logos. Okay, CNN.
Again, can they be simplified? Yeah, but I would not change the red and the letters. Like red CNN, like you tell me CNN, I say like red letter C N and like that. That's that. Like if the font is a bit old school, maybe. So I would maybe modernize it a bit. But I wouldn't go to gray or blue or green. Like change that's equity. Like if you change, if tomorrow CNN is now a green CNN, like I think like if there was offer for like Gap, it will go insane. Yeah. So I would say in between, maybe all this. I don't know.
No, I think I agree. It's your opinion.
Right.
I think something that's cool about specifically something that's for a logo for news is the fact that if it is one solid color, then they can alter it for specific purposes. For example, like a holiday or something. Like they can change the logo to be two different colors or another color, but it's just for that time, and people don't get angry about things like that, which is silly.
Right.
But they will get angry at the complete change of the notable color, and I think that that's something that, like, if you just have a solid color, then you can kind of work with it for different purposes. But if you had maybe something that was more complex in design, then it would maybe be harder to integrate something new into it if you just wanted to do it for a temporary purpose.
Right, right. And then you own the color, right? Like Fox is blue, CNN is red. And
Yep.
like they own them. And like
Which is ironic.
I know. Yeah, yeah, it's super interesting. But yeah, again, I would just leave like what people recognize, unless it starts to struggle. When like the brands are struggling, that's when like the panic comes and like say like, what about the logo? What about if we reinvent everything? So if it's going well, don't try and fix it, you know. So yeah, that's why like you see all these big brands doing like just tiny changes, and I get it. And like from the outside, it might look like a bit dumb, but it isn't, because you don't want to just reinvent every year, every 2 years, because at some point, no one is going to understand who you are or what the brand is.
Well, as a designer, would you recommend like playing it safe if it's something that already works, or if a brand is trying to do something new or different? Would you recommend them taking that risk, or like what would you kind of recommend if that was something that they were looking into?
Well, I guess that risk is always good, but you need to just understand what are you losing in return. I remember also like reading something about Dunkin' Donuts, and there was Dunkin' Donuts, and everyone would refer to Dunkin' Donuts as Dunkin'. So like they were pushing of like, just lose the donuts, just stay with Dunkin', and there was a lot of pushback from the executives, like, no, but like we are Dunkin' Donuts. Like, well, you're not, you're donkeying in the world. So like, and then at some point they're like, you know something, let's go for it. And then they you see all the stores now, and they just say donkeying with a little apostrophe. And I think
Mhm.
that was an amazing risk, and like it paid off. There's some fails, but if you fail, you can always go back. And if you're gonna, you can treat it as a marketing stunt, like, we were joking, we're back to the old one. And then like you got the views, you got the reaction. I think like
Yeah,
nowadays everything is about eyes on and being on the X, and people sharing and people getting upset. So if you're getting people upset, I guess like in a way, at least people are talking about your brand.
exactly. Especially for a logo, I think that there's less of a likelihood of people getting up in our, like, yes, people get very angry at very silly things sometimes, but if the logo is changing and nothing about the business is changing, I mean, if you see um a uproar over the change of your logo, changing it back despite that you probably put a lot of money in changing it in the first place, changing it back in order to maintain your customer base, if they're so up in arms about it, is something that may not be as big of a deal for your loyal customers. It's something that I think when you change something about your brand that inherently impacts what the user experiences, then that's something that's more crucial. But a logo, yeah, there are people that are going to get angry about that because they're used to seeing something, but it changes over time, and that's what your brain remembers the new one now after like 5 years of it existing.
Also, like people getting angry because of a logo, like really, like, and if you're like, it's like, I won't shop anymore at Gap because you have a new logo. I think like you need
That's
to
crazy.
rethink your, yeah, like, and
Maybe you didn't like Gap that much. I mean,
like how, well, like I guess that people might just have like this relationship to the brand, but just let them do their thing, you know. Like, why does it affect people that much? Like if brands are like trying to do what they think it's best for them, right? So just give them a chance. Like if they're changing the recipe of Coke, when that happened and there was the uproar, like I understand it because you're a consumer and you like it. Or like, I don't remember the last brand that I heard that like there was like the scent of a deodorant or something, they changed it, and like people are like just bring it back. I understand those because like that affects the consumer in a way, but like like the logo that I see when I walk through the doors of the store, I think like that would not be like such important to me for for never shopping again or shopping more. But I guess I can
Maybe
see.
it's a little dramatic.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think you liked a brand enough if your commitment is gone because you don't like their
Right.
logo anymore. Maybe I think that is a whole, I guess, overarching problem with like if a brand is not doing well, maybe they shouldn't be looking at their logo. I think
Right.
that's
Yeah.
not the
I think.
fix.
Yeah, and I think like uproars and like I think like social media and online like are people really mad or is it like 20 people online? Like is like I think like social media like tends to amplify what you think that people or like everyone is thinking, but it's not everyone. It's just like a bunch of like people online that are like just making a lot of noise and like the brands might feel like, oh my god, like we are disappointing all of our consumers. No, you're not. You just need to
You're just
just
disappointing the most outspoken of us. Like
exactly,
people that,
exactly.
it's not likely that the people that love a brand are going to necessarily defend them because they're just going to keep going. So I think that the most outspoken are the angriest most of the time, and that's
And
what you
people
hear.
that are bored and that they have time. Like I would don't care if like if I really want a car. Well, that one is different because that was a whole thing, the Jaguar one. But like if I like the Gap sweaters, I'll go and get one, and that's it. You know, like, I just live my life, please.
Yes, exactly. And I think that it did I think for like to become more relevant, I think changing your logo might be a maybe good move for if you're in a position where you're not doing as well or your profits are you're not meeting your profit margins, then okay, I can kind of understand that if you think that relevancy is the problem. But
Right.
if it's a deeper problem that you're not really looking into, I don't think that your logo should be the first thing you look at. Maybe it should be why are people dissatisfied with coming here, or why are
Right,
people not
100%.
that's a deeper issue, but it's like a lot of people assume that the performative things are what will change my brand for the good and not necessarily looking inwards.
And there are trends, of course, like creative trends, like the old Google logo with like the G that came down. I don't know, like that font felt just dated. So I understand that like maybe the company was doing great, but like they realized, something like it really does look dated. We're moving from like the more uh, I don't know, over the top fonts to like a much more simple one. So let's just go with the trend, and that is not necessarily a reaction of like my brand is not doing well. I need to do something about it. That's a good recognition, and just do it. You don't spend so much money to try and like analyze and reinvent and see what's wrong. You just do it. So yeah, there is like external factors that I think might wanna address, but not necessarily um, just do it all the time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like there's certain things that you should kind of always be looking for just the environment that you're in, I suppose. Like that is a reason to maybe alter your logo, because there are reasons that you should modernize because people are going to, I don't know, like I guess that is also a worry about being relevant, of like if you have a logo that looks outdated or doesn't fit in with current trends, then yeah, maybe there is time for a change. But I think it's also a double-edged sword sometimes, because a lot of people recognize you because you stand out, because
Right,
you're not modernizing, and I think that's a very difficult
right,
balance. But if you're Google, I don't think you really have to worry
right. I
about
agree.
something like that.
I remember like reading about like the NBA uniforms, which is very odd, but like the NBA uniforms in the 80s, like they had to stitch the name of the team. So it was like the Raptors. So it was like either white or very simple, like solid colors with just the name Raptors. And then in the 90s, suddenly the technology changes, and that's when you start to be able to like do prints in the fabric, because the more things that you would put in the fabric, the more the weight of the uniform would be bigger and bigger, and you have like only like limited amount of colors. Then technology improves, and they're like, oh my god, can I do anything now? And that's kind of like the big boom. I don't know if probably not, but like the Raptors uniform in the 90s, it's like a dinosaur that is blue, like coming out, dressed with another uniform with a big ball, and like then there's like this crazy explosion of color and like the and big weird like the big weird patterns. And it was because technology at that point was able to do that. Then like fast forward to now, and we're back to solid red that says Raptors. So it's like a full 360 of that. And it was back then, it made sense. So like you do need to kind of understand what's happening, and then just and and react accordingly. I guess, I suppose.
It is genuinely very funny how we very much go back to like fashion trends, for example. Like we're going back to the 70s, like, and
Right.
that's what's popular now, and I think that's hysterical. I love it because I liked that stuff when I was even younger, before it became trendy. So now
That's
it's trendy
cool.
and it's everywhere. So I'm excited. But it's very funny how that happens, and it happens with brands constantly. With maybe I was just looking for it. I'm pushing for this. I'm gonna mention this all the time until they recognize me and they change this. But Walmart, which will never happen, but I Walmart used to have an old-timey Western logo. Like one of their first logos was like a saloon. And I just found that out recently, and I thought it was awesome. And I was like, why would they stop doing that? Their modern logo, I hate it. I think it's boring. I understand it's identifiable, so I'm sure there was a lot of research put into the Walmart logo, the little thing, the yellow lines that come out. I think of it, so it is definitely relevant on my mind. But the original Walmart logo, so much cooler, so much
Oh,
more
wow.
fun.
Now I need to see it.
It's you have to look it up. You can look it up now, look it up after the call, but it is very cool. I like it a lot. It's definitely very like almost pharmaceutical. It looks it just looks like an old-timey Western saloon sign, but I really do like it, and I think it would stand out amongst all of these modern logos, and I think that would be something that would be very cool. And I like that. I like when people go against the grain with their brands, because I think that is something that can stand out. I think that being trendy isn't always the best move, but I understand why people do it.
Right. Yeah, I wish I had more like I went to architecture school, and so I studied architecture, and my creative direction is more in the physical space. Of course, I need to touch everything like branding, 2D, all the graphics, all of that. Uh, but I think like the history of logos and graphic design and fonts and all that, I'm just really interested, and I find it so like, I don't know if you watched the documentary about like the font designer, and like he spends years just coming up with a font, and like it's just like that's your life project to just do fonts. And it's crazy to me, but it's so interesting, like everyone has their craft. So I guess, do whatever makes you happy.
Yeah, no, it is very interesting that something that's it seems so little to the average person, because they're just interacting with brands and logos and whatever it may be, and it's just something that seems to be a very small part of their life, which now it's actually, logos are a huge part of people's lives. I think that, way back when logos weren't as incorporated into fashion as like people wanted to advertise them, but now it's so heavily involved in fashion trends and different things like that. So I think the logos are more involved than maybe they were back then. But
It's a status symbol in fashion,
yes,
for example, like having that LV, having that H, like that makes you, now you're saying something to everyone. It's like, look at me, like I can afford this, or like
exactly.
it's like people ask me like, why would you pay like $100 for a bottle of wine? Like it tastes exactly the same for like a 30. And I'm like, why would you use that bag?
Yeah, exactly.
Like you can like it's like I like
Poison.
to open it and feel that I'm like drinking something special and like share it with my friends. You whenever you put your like bag or your shoes, like you also are feeling that way. So it's kind of like similar to it. So yeah, psychological in a way.
It is. It definitely is. It's a very it's interesting how much brand awareness is more I guess mainstream for the average person now, where maybe before you just wanted your logo to be attractive for your audience, but it wasn't necessarily a status symbol or like a statement. But now it's changed drastically in a way that I want you to see this logo. Whereas I think previously, I think even like maybe 10 years ago with a lot of brands, it's like, why do I want to wear this big logo on my shirt? Like, I think that's not fashion. That's just a word. Like,
Right.
why would you want to do that? But now it's become something so much bigger and larger than life. And it's very, yeah, it's a really cool, it's a really cool topic that a lot of people spend so much time on creating some of these things and you don't even think about them. You just think about like what they mean, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I think like when I graduated architecture and like after a couple of years of doing traditional architecture and I was miserable and I had a crisis and then I found like the experiential design world. Uh, in the first 4 years of my career, I was working in an experiential agency that like specialized in high-end fashion and beauty in New York. So we would just do launches and events and parties and galas of like the big fashion houses and the big brands, and just seeing that live and how much like what these brands mean to people is just mind blowing. Like people like now like okay, maybe I need to go back to like just saying like where people would get to know with Gap, because now I can see it like in another light where like you truly like uh, believe that that brand is like an extension of yourself in a way, like this is my fragrance or this is my perfume, and like now this is me as well. So if they go and
Mm.
change it, or like I'm the person that would just love to have the little polo thing in my shirts, and I love it and I relate to it, and then they go and change my little horse, and I would be upset because it does affect me in a way. It's not only like the words up above the store anymore. Like once you start printing those logos into your clothing and you put that in your
Mm.
body, like now it's part of you. So like I guess you can in a way get upset. Like I remember when like the Gap hoodies were at the thing, and like that was like the most trend. Like just look at me, I have like an oversized hoodie with the words Gap in front, and like,
Uh-huh.
that made me cool, like, so not anymore, but I guess people still have like some relationship to it.
Yeah, it's almost a part of their identity and what they recognize as part of themselves, especially if they really like it. For example, like I don't ever foresee in the near future, maybe within like the next, maybe after 50 years from now, maybe Louis Vuitton would ever change their logo, and I don't think ever, because it's so identifiable. People recognize it by just seeing it on a bag, and it's not, it's less similar to maybe the Gaps of the world, and the idea that, yeah, that Gap sweatshirt is identifiable, but a lot of their other clothes is not, because it's just stitched into the seam. It's not actually something that's broadcasted. But for statement pieces and designer pieces, that logo is part of you. So it it's interesting because people, it maybe doesn't make sense for people to get up in arms, to me, for the Gaps of the world or the Walmarts or whatever it may be about a logo change, because how do you identify with that logo if it's not something that's incorporated into you? Whereas
Right.
I would maybe understand more if it was something like a logo that's broadcasted as a part of your fashion or your identity, something that's part of your life and who you are, and something that you really enjoy for their brand identity.
Well, and that connects you to your friends. Like I'm sure that you've seen this group of friends that they're walking down the street and they're all dressed the same, and you're like really, like you have the exact same style, all of you. But I think like that's what connects them. Like that's why there's like skater fashion, and that's why like there's like just trends of, like you were saying before, like just going back to old school, to the 70s, like the jackets and all of that like in the 80s were now like old, now they're cool again. And it's just so interesting to me how these like waves and trends, and like where are they coming from? Is like, it's from the top down and from the bottom up, like who's setting them? Like fast fashion, I think it just changed the way that we see and shop. And I remember when you would see like a new look or a new item in like a fashion show or a runway show, and you would know that that would be available in a year or two. Now,
Mm,
tomorrow, like all that,
immediately.
it's crazy.
It is very crazy. I the who yeah, that is a bigger philosophical,
Right, I
I
know.
guess, discussion about fashion, because yeah, it is very. Growing up, my mom owned a consignment shop, and I remember she would watch like fashion shows to kind of see what would be popular soon, so that when people were taking in clothing, she was taking things that would be trending or are trendy now, and all
Right.
these things. But drastically changed within the last 20 years of what is trendy and what is in and out. It's so difficult to figure out what's trending now, because you don't know. It's also things that are so old, like even old is definitely not really the correct word, because things that were popular in the early 2000s are popular again now, which scares me, because that was a horrible fashion era,
It's
for, in
vintage
my
now, right?
opinion,
That's a
at
word now.
and it's popular again now, and I think that's hysterical. But it's such an interesting, I guess, a larger conversation about, should you make alterations to your brand based on trends because they're in and out like that now? It's like, is it something that is worth the time and the money when you could focus on maybe other things?
Yeah, yeah. I also just keep saying that I read about it, but I read a lot. But there's this like phenomenon of like when there's a new trend, a lot of people tend like try to get into the trend, but not like almost a trend. Let me try and explain. Let's say like these like new yellow Adidas shoes are the new hot thing and everyone is wearing them. Or like even with cars, remember when like the Beetle was a thing, like the Volkswagen Beetle, and everyone tried to have like a light blue one. So you want to be part of it, but you want to feel like a sell off, like a sellout. So you
Mm.
get the Adidas, but you get them in like in a gray instead of yellow, so that makes you feel better because like you're not like hopping into the train, so you feel you're cooler than everyone. It's like, oh, you have the yellow ones, so like, and when I read about it, I'm like, oh my god, I do it all the time. Like I kind of like, I started to realize that that I would never buy what everyone's buying, not at all. But I did do a lot of these kind of like on the edge of like just getting
Adjacent.
in. Adjacent. Yeah, that's like a psychological thing of and I'm like, oh my god, I need to stop doing this. Like I'm falling for this, or maybe it's not falling. It's like, oh, you're all wearing this brand. Well, I'm wearing the same brand, but like the 1980s version, and I feel that I'm cooler than everyone. But no, I'm also falling for it, in a way, so I thought that was so interesting.
No, that is really interesting. I'd actually love to read about that as well, because I think that's hysterical. That is something that I know I do. It's like
Right.
it is, because no one. I think there are people that want to be like everyone else because they want to fit in, but there are people that I feel like most people don't want to seem like they're blatantly copying what is
Right.
trendy. So they try to be unique and also trendy, which is this
That,
cusp of
yes.
and I think that brands do this all the time too, is that I think this even could go into like competitors of the idea that I don't know if it's best to constantly monitor people that, or brands or agencies or whatever it may be, that do something similar to you, because yeah, maybe it's important to keep up with trends, but also if you're too involved in other companies like yourself, then maybe it's more likely that you're just going to become them, I because you're constantly aware of what they're doing, and you want to be ahead of the game, or you want to make sure that you're keeping up with them or whatever it may be, and that doesn't necessarily make you unique. It's like a similar phenomenon of like, you could just like what you like, but it's very difficult to like what you like if you're so immersed in trends and everything that's
Yeah,
going on.
100%. I hate when we're talking about design, and a designer, the first thing that they do when they receive a brief for a project is go to Pinterest. Like, no, no, those are like people. Yes, there's trends and there's really beautiful things on Pinterest, but like, just like, have a point of view of what you want to do and what you're trying to do, and then like, just maybe once you have at least like an understanding, or like a concept, or an idea, then maybe try and support it with like some additional inspiration images. But like, if your first approach is to go on Pinterest to find something that you like, and then say like, oh, this is what I want to do, like, you're not really designing. You just like, more of like, just, I wouldn't say copying either, because no one is copying exactly what they see, but it's just kind of like grabbing what, like, I can tell you all the Pinterest trends that I've seen, like the little arches with the little pastels, like that was 2 years ago, like the mirror rooms, like how many Instagrammable infinity mirror rooms they were, like 100,000 every event. It's like, oh, infinity mirror room. It's like, ah, wow. And they would change, they put a light, they would put a thing. Like, even artists were doing like the S. Devlin like
Yeah.
mirror thing, and the like a Kusama mirror. It's cool. We get it. Let's move on. Like, like, in a way. But then the
Yeah,
client is like, I want a mirror room. And you're like, ah, okay, here we go again. So,
okay. Yeah, but I understand what you're saying, is like, maybe try to have an original thought first, and then
yes.
maybe look for inspiration if you need help in these places, like something that you can add to that or can like elevate it. And that's even how people are kind of using AI now, where it's like, it shouldn't be doing the work for you, but it's really helpful with like inspiration, in the idea of
Right.
like, you can um get a project and start with what the ideas that are circulating in your head first. Maybe make a draft or write those down, and then look for outside sources that may be able to help you more, and like create it into a fully fledged thing. Um,
Right.
but going to those first, you don't know if you're really being. I don't know if anyone is really being original. That's a more philosophical
Yeah,
debate, but you have something that might be more unique when you start in just your brain, and that's why you're the person that we hired and not Pinterest. Is
exactly.
is you use those things to help you.
Yeah, and go to Pinterest and browse and look for cool things, but not for you, not as part of the design process. I think like being up to date of like what people are doing, of course, is great. Like, what are like these top agencies doing? What are these top artists doing? What are these top architects doing? And like, be informed of what's out there, because that information is going to just like live in your brain. So when you get a project and you say like, hey, we need you to build a bar or design a bar, like, you're going to be aware of all of the things that other people are doing. So now you can create your original thought that probably is going to be in some way related to what you've seen. But if you just use the Pinterest to just type in the word modern bar or cool bar, and then just find one that you like, and it's like, oh, what about this one? Like, I don't think that's a good design process, and it's not doing you any favors, so you're not going to become better. So just be informed about trends, but don't use them for as your first thing before you start sketching, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. You should challenge yourself too, because I think that when you're just looking at trends, then there's not necessarily something that you can create that's unique because you're just taking in all of this feedback. I think it's also overwhelming in a way of like
The
looking
rabbit
at all
hole.
these. Yeah, it's that you are looking at so much noise, and then all of these things. If you're, especially if you're looking up something as broad as modern bar,
Yeah.
that might not be. There's something that you can. Artists are artists because they have direction. Like there is something that they're going towards, and there are so many helpful tools out there that can, help fine tune that. But the first part is important. Is like, let's get this idea on paper and figure out what we want to do and our vision for it, and then let's go on Pinterest and maybe look up cool couches or like this like something more targeted, that's more specific to incorporate into this idea that you already have formed.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's one of the challenges, like working in this industry, in an agency where you might have like your own style, right? Like I love minimalist, like this is my style and my personal preference in materials, in scale, in whatever you want. But then you're working with a client where the brand has like a specific style for the brand, and it might be completely the opposite of what you like, like so.
Mhm.
Like you just maybe work with like a super old school brand that wants drapery and plush pillows and rugs and a lot of florals, and maybe that's not at all who I am, but like I understand as a creative working for that brand that I need to channel their vision into the output that I put on. So like I think like that's kind of like pros and cons of working. I love the fact that I can kind of wear many hats, and I will put my Google hat when we work with Google. I will put my Michelob Ultra hat when I work with Michelob Ultra. And that don't necessarily mean that I love the four primary colors and the wood and like the Google things, but I understand them. So like, I don't know, can you feel that you're not you? I guess you can, but you can always find a way of like expressing yourself, even if it's through the aesthetic and the brand. And I think
Yeah.
like that's a balance.
It's challenging yourself too. I think that it's like if you have a specific way of doing things or a specific way in which you like something to be, but someone is asking for something very different from that. As a designer, that might be something that is difficult, but that's what you do. That's a you cater a design for a specific client, and maybe that's not your forte, but if you're able to make their vision a reality, then that is that's success. That's exactly what your goal is.
Right. And if you want to do your thing, like you can try and open your own studio and have your style. And if like clients are coming to you, they're coming to you because they like who you are. So now you can express yourself fully, but that's hard to do.
Yes, exactly. I think that is a beautiful note to end on, because I think that
Yes,
it embrace your individuality, as
of
well
course.
as be able to cater for other people's tastes as well. But thank you so much for joining me. I thought this was
Of
great. You were
course.
unsure of whether it was going to be great, and it was great. So
No,
thank
it was a
you.
great conversation. Like, don't talk about creative and design much outside of work. So I am always appreciate having these kind of conversations. It was great. Thank you
I
for the
appreciate
invite.
it too. And I also love learning about new things and research, and you're very well read. So I'm going to look up a bunch of the things that you
Look at the
mentioned.
NBA uniforms and the edge of the trends. Like you're trying to be cool. Like that's a funny thing. Yeah.
But I will be looking into some of these things as well, because I love learning about stuff in this field, especially design. I'm not I work for a heavily creative company, but I'm not a heavily creative person. But I love learning about it. I think it's just very it gets me out of my own more analytical brain. And I really enjoy learning about like different trends. So this was very eye-opening as well to some new things that I will be looking into to learn
I think
about.
there's something creative of what you're doing. Like for sure. Like just like this, not easy to just be hosting and talking and following the conversation. So like doing great.
I appreciate that.
Of course.
Well, thank you again for joining me. I really appreciate it. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope that you also investigate some of the things that Yonathan talked about. I think that this was very fun and I learned a lot, and that's selfishly my favorite part of the podcast. So I hope you guys learned as much as I did.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend and, of course, subscribe.